So I think well, I hope that covers the level 3 to enough extent that at least it stems some other questions or answered some that those of you out there might have. So I'd like to move on to the level 4, and just to give a little background, Lee and I both spent time serving in a special mission unit. Historically, SMUs, doesn't matter the country that you're talking about, are really the only organizations that focus on underground facilities or deep underground, as we used to call them, or subterranean target sets. So I guess a good way to segue into this, Lee, is what was your biggest fear in terms of a tunnel complex and the threats that we might face?
Yeah, well, at the time, our shields were mounted on four-wheelers. My biggest fear was dismounting to a smaller area, turning the corner, and you see a long tunnel with a machine gun at the end, taking multiple rounds, and you got to close that distance, that fatal funnel. How are you going to do that without a shield? I mean,
yeah, getting A to B, right, or moving your element from A to B in a linear target, taking belt fed.
You already lost element of surprise.
We didn't even have, other than lobbing, bigger rounds downrange, which then you're dealing with structural integrity, then you're dealing with secondaries, you don't know what's at the end of that tunnel. So closing that distance while receiving belt-fed or armor-piercing type munitions, we didn't have an answer for.
No.
So
At all.
Did you guys ever bring that up or in the early days back then?
Yeah.
And they were just like, meh.
There was literally not an answer.
Wow.
Right. Move fast. Right?
More
you got your armor on.
Faster than 2,850 feet per second.
Yeah, exactly. You got your body armor on.
And more bullets in a direction wins was kind of the
fire superiority,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So having that background, and there was a lot of people that thought about this, but in the beginning of Shields and Dollies, we knew, you knew, you absolutely wanted to do the lightest, most usable level 4 that had ever been done. And then, to go back to the previous conversation about self-certs and what was actually required of a shield, we knew that standard was not good enough.
It wasn't adequate.
Wasn't good enough for us, right? So given the history of guys that work for us and work with us and the customers that we talk to. So that led into the development of level 4. So talk about B4C and that first piece, because I think that first conversation is a good one.
Yeah, I think the first conversation we had around the threat was that very first day. We went really, really long that day. Usually, when we get into product development mode like that, we're like, we'll pull a really long night
The
and
clock goes away.
just kind of keep whiteboarding stuff. We forget to call our wives. We'll get a text around 6 o'clock like, "Hey, are you guys coming home for dinner or whatever?" And
lost in the process.
Yeah, we completely got lost in that process that day, and it was super cool. But we started looking at, okay, what is required? What do we believe the requirement was, and then what do we think the actual requirement's actually going to be? And those are completely two different pieces. What we felt like the requirement should be was dramatically different than what the Army required for a safety release, right? And they didn't even know what they wanted because nobody had done that before. Nobody had built a level 4 shield for the U.S. Army at that point that was actually safety certified, which ours is. It's the only one in the U.S. Army arsenal. And to be able to get through that entire process by ADIC and go through the whole thing. So their initial requirement was 3 rounds. It was same as the ESAPI requirement. So,
same as a plate that you wear on your body.
Because that's the only thing that
that's
they had.
This big compared to something that's going to actually eat some rounds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And just for the understanding of their process, that's their requirement. That would be a level 4 requirement, which is an APM2 requirement, and not B32. Is just that, a ballistic plate. So that was a good baseline starting point. So their requirement was, well, we think it should be 3 rounds. So we were in talks with them, and the ref and AWG at the same time, and we proposed a different threat requirement. So we proposed a 7 hits on the actual applique itself and 2 rounds on the actual bolts that were APM2 rounds.
Okay.
And they thought that was a little much. I thought that should be maybe even more. So we kind of met in the middle, and we ended up with 7 and 2.
But we felt like, given our experience with
that was pretty solid
ceramics, that we could achieve that.
Yeah. So it really came down to that first night. It was like, okay, this is the type of tile we're gonna have to use in the front face. And we said, okay, well, it's all about weight. It's all about mobility, just like you guys were just talking about, right? Mobility, capability, and being able to stop more bullets than anything else that's out there on the market. So we didn't want to be a Me Too. We didn't want to do a steel shield. A lot of guys will do steel, and they think, well, even that they go through that testing, they only test for 1 round. So if you think about that, they're like, well, if I have a 500 to 600 pound piece of steel that I'm moving, think about just that part of it. It's like long pause, 500, 600 pounds that I've got to move.
If it's not practical, you're not going to use it.
It doesn't make any sense, right? And how are you going to put it down? How are you going to get it down there? Then you're going to set it up with 2 or 3 people, and then you're going to take 2 or 3 people to move it. It's just, it doesn't make sense. So we wanted to keep everything in the under 175 pounds was our goal. So Dolly with 2 level 4 shields, or 2 level 3 shields with level 4 appliques.
Okay.
Let's preface it that way, because the idea was that we were using the MT3s and then putting level 4 appliques on top of that, which were curved appliques. That had not been done before.
Yeah, so real quick, so why an applique?
So the applique gives you the ability to, let's say, up armor an actual shield, right? So the idea of being able to take a level 3 system and then put an applique on the front of that and literally take that from a level 3 to a level 4. The other aspect of it is, instead of trying to integrate one complete piece, the tile will take so much more abuse by itself and be able to keep that level 3 stainless. So the level 3 shield is your capture mechanism. If you think about, the tile is a harder surface than the actual bullet itself. That's breaking up the bullet. And then the shield, the current MT3 shield, instead of trying to build, we could have made a lighter level 4 shield very easily. We talked about this early on. Like, hey, well, we could integrate the tile with the material itself and mold those together and actually cut weight off the entire piece. But our thought process was more rounds, more protection, and stay under 175 pounds.
Right.
So we kind of gave ourselves, nobody gave us that goal. We kind of set that goal based on kind of your guys' backgrounds and Chris's background, at Redneck's background, and really having that conversation going, this is what we think is manageable with guys being able to set that up.
Yeah.
And then we went about the tile.
So on the applique, just for the layman, there's some helmet manufacturers and folks out there that are doing stuff like this. Lee, I don't know if you ever used one. I didn't, but there's some helmets out there that are pistol rated helmets and frag rated helmets that you can put a ballistic applique, a hard shell on top of that, that gives you rifle rated protection. Obviously they're heavy, you add weight and there's other issues, but just so people understand, you're talking about applying a piece of ceramic to a shield in our system, to a level 3 shield in our system. So in terms of construction of the applique,
I honestly did not think it was going to be that big of a deal. To me, I'm like, well, it's just a bigger plate, right? And luckily, we worked with a company called Tech real closely, and I would say the smartest ceramics guy in the world is a guy named Rich Pilecki. He's kind of the grandfather of all. He didn't want to be called grandfather. The Godfather. I should re-say that.
Typically, you refer to him as the Godfather of
the Godfather of modern ceramics, right? And he really is, and he's one of the nicest guys. I've known him for 22 plus years now, and he actually gave me my first ballistic classes. They were way over my head, 22 years ago. And I remember he did this entire equation. I was like, can you dumb this down like a lot? So I've developed a really strong friendship with him over the years, and I had a conversation with him. I'm like,
so I said, before you talk about the call, when he gets off the call, I know enough, but I don't know what goes into the construction of a large curved piece of ceramic tile.
Which obviously neither did I.
I assumed that Rich and Tech and those guys had the expertise to achieve something, so I was kind of naive about it. But he got off the phone call, and I said, "What did he say?"
He's like, essentially, what we're asking for is them to build the largest piece of B4C ever made, and it's because we given him a very short timeline of like a month and a half, and the size and the shape. And what it had to be, and the thickness of what we believe the thickness of it needed to be, and he said it was essentially trying to build the space shuttle in a 30-day period of time. Now they did it in 60 days, so they built the first prototype in 60 days. But it was like they were like, well, that can't be done, and I'm like, what do you mean it can't be done? I'm like, you guys are the smartest people ever. Like, you keep telling me how you guys are so great at all this.
The words were, they said to him, Well, no one's ever asked for that.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked for it.
And his response, of
Yeah,
course,
that's right.
was,
I forgot
well,
about
I
that.
am.
Yeah, nobody had ever asked for something that significant, that big to be done before, because there's no reason for it, right?
So we had some trial and error there.
We went through 3 different versions of it.
But hell or high water, they got it done.
And it's badass, man. It is really badass. So the tile by itself comes in, and it's completely, we wrap it with carbon, right? So it's this pure B4C tile, and it's massive, and it's got the holes drilled in it already and everything else like that, or not drilled in it, but water jetted in it. And then we wrap it with carbon to protect it. So what that does is help with crack mitigation on the tile itself. So whether it's dropped, all the way have a whole other system in the ballistic vein system that goes over the level 4 shield that helps from drop protection and impacts and stuff like that. But just from it being hit and stuff like that, and also just crack mitigation. So once it does take one round, sustain one round, the carbon essentially keeps all that ceramic together to where the cracks don't become larger, right?
Don't propagate.
Yeah, propagate. So the smaller the crack surfaces are itself, the more rounds you can actually take on that tile itself. And so we went through this back and forth with ADIC after we received the tile, and we had shot, I think, 2 of them ourselves and said, okay, this is where we think it's going to perform. We knew it was going to be able to stop to 7 and 2. We felt really, really good about that. We had to design an entire bolt system specifically for this. That's actually a 2-hit bolt system. So it actually, the first front of the first face of the bolt is actually a sacrificial piece that gets hit and destroyed and comes off, and then you still have another ballistic bolt underneath that. So those can take both 2 APM 2 hits on those as well. Right. And again, just trying to look at what is going to possibly happen in a long tunnel, right? Yeah. And that's because the way we look at it, obviously I think all of us look at it, and you're not from this world originally, right? Neither was Chris, but because of the backgrounds that you guys have, and I think the conversations we've all had early on, I would say the same thing about Joey, I'd say the same thing about Chris Greider, I'd say the same thing about Glenn or Danny or Chuck or any of those guys, any of the guys that have ever worked for us, any of the girls that have ever worked for us, but specifically you guys from those backgrounds, I don't need a sales guy, right? Ever. I mean, I think I've said that to all you guys. What I've always wanted is I need somebody with that knowledge base that is passionate enough to help me drive the product development, and 2, that cares enough about the guys that you guys came from to be able to, if we're not making that good of stuff, then we're not doing it the right way.
And to think out of the box, right?
Totally.
To ask the right question.
We were like, this doesn't make sense. Like, they're only asking for 3 rounds. Like, this doesn't.
So we added.
Who does that?
We added speed with the Dolly system, right? Yeah. We knew we could cover the distance faster than we ever could with a movable piece of cover.
Had to cut weight significantly.
In a level 4.
The next closest level 4 system is like 400 and something pounds.
It's crazy. Like I said, caster wheels.
Doesn't even make sense.
Movable barricade.
Yeah. 2 big dudes have to move
one
it.
brass casing will stop it.
Totally. Totally.
So we talked about ballistics testing as it relates to shields and all that stuff, and we had accomplished our level 3 task. Now we were on to our level 4 task. Our goal was 7 rounds.
7 and 2. 7 rounds on the surface of the tile.
And 2 on the bolts.
And 2 on the bolts.
Right.
So where did we end up?
So we ended up, we brought 2 of them to test with those guys so we had to do a live fire test in front of them for them to sign off on it. Yep. They had their engineers there, both from the ref and ADIC and AWG was there. We had a lot of guys.
Which is really cool. Like normally ballistic testing is something that sort of happens in that vacuum.
Yep.
And this was a case where it was something that had never been done. So we were excited about it, which in turn got them excited about it. So everybody showed up.
For us, we were everybody thinks it's like this secret art. And there's some black magic.
There's some secret sauce there. Yeah.
There is some black magic there, but we wanted people to actually, like, this is no joke. This is the best system that's out there, and this is why. And so we felt it was really important to actually invite them and actually have them on site. And
and it's a life-saving piece of equipment.
Man. Like, this is our kids behind us.
Like, we had the transparency conversation early. Like, hey, we don't want people to know that we're doing this, but the people that we're doing it for, we want them to know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. Trust your equipment.
So they can trust their equipment.
Yeah.
So it was critical.
Yeah, so we shot both of them for 7 and 2, and we had 100% stoppages, obviously. And, well, not obviously, but we did. We had 100% stoppages on both of them. And the engineer that was there to sign off was like, all right, well, obviously this is amazing. I've never seen anything perform like this, and we're going to sign you guys off for the safety release, and we should have this in like the next 48 to 72 hours, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, but we're not done yet. And he's like, what do you mean we're not done yet? I'm like, so you're good with the way they are right now? He's like, absolutely. I go, so we're going to shoot 24 more rounds on each one of them. He goes, you're going to do what? I'm like, we're going to shoot 24 rounds and see where the failure is, and we're going to shoot B-32.
Right.
We're not going to shoot APM-2 because what we're worried about is that PKM round. PKM
Is what you said in the beginning of the conversation.
To that exact extent. And so what we did is we did placement. So at first we had 5-inch spacing on all the APM-2 threats on the shield itself. So everything had to be in 5-inch spacings. And then we were like, okay, well, we want to see, one is how close to the edge shots we can actually get.
Okay.
2, we want to see how close to shot patterns that we can actually get as well. We ended up getting to 3-inch shot spacings, 2.5 to 3 inches. That comes down to when that round hits that ceramic, it destroys that amount of ceramic. There's only so much capability of that ceramic to be able to withstand. Just the integrity of it and the thickness of it can only, because you get those cracks. Even with the carbon fiber on it, you're still gonna get some.
Yeah, like with anything, there's a trade-off.
Yeah, that's just the reality.
You have to kind of set a margin line and go this heavy, this light, this capable.
Absolutely. So we ended up hitting that, and we ended up doing 1-inch edge shots. We did a couple half-inch edge shots. We did another shot on some of the bolts that were actually already shot. We shot those as well, just to double check those. We ended up with 23 out of 24. Again, we already had 9 shots of APM-2. And then 23 rounds of B-32 on that same shield. And we've got photos of them, we've got videos of them. We'll post those after this video. And we've posted some of them before in the past, and especially like the slow-mo video of the B-32 hitting. It again, I've got 6 kids, right? And we all have kids sitting here, and so do our other guys that work for us. And it's so important to be able to make sure that we're thinking about that when we're designing it. I mean, I know Chris and I had that conversation early on. I'm like, Chris is like, man, this is literally your sons behind this shield.
Yeah.
So everything that we do has to make sure that we're taking care of this. And we think about that with everything.
Yep.
But this was such a significant piece because you could have 12 people behind this system, and if it fails, you could literally lose that many guys in a whim. If you're halfway down a tunnel or whatever, you have no cover. And obviously that could still occur. You could have ricochets off walls.
But you are mitigating risk.
All you're trying to do is you're trying to deter that situation. Try to lessen the probability of that happening. So I was really happy with it. They were blown away by it. They literally, we've had multiple companies ask us, can you guys do vehicle armor out of the same system? We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Give us another year. It'll be coming around.
Give us the problem.
That's the thing is give us that. I think that's where we do really well, and I think that's why tier, the mantra early on has been the trademark of the company is innovate or die, right? And I think the way that we design and the design principles on this project, this was totally true to form. This is exactly what it was about. This is what's in our heart. This is really what the company's about.
And it's the thing that we all love.
Yeah, man. It's like, that you could be a part of saving somebody's life. That's the ultimate goal,
Yeah, so, I guess to package it all up, we were tasked with a problem set, with a capability gap. We rapidly and effectively identified ways to fill that capability gap. We developed that product set. What we ended up at the end of it was with a level 3, both in a full size on our MT3 shield and then in a CQB size, a level 4, which had never been done, that far exceeds
154 pounds complete system.
2 shields.
That's two shields.
Two shields
and
a dolly.
And a dolly.
154
on a
pounds.
dolly. So singularly,
30. Yeah, it's the 42 pounds per shield.
42 pounds, so still man portable, the equivalent of level 3s that were out there. So we ended up with level 3s,
which is
2
nuts.
sizes.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Level 4s, 2 sizes because we had to do a CQB with the applique piece too. A dolly system that met the capability gaps, and it kind of culminated. Well, it did culminate in the largest shield order in world history
since the Roman Empire, at least.
And I don't say that I think it's important for people to understand. Like we don't. It's not about the selling the shields.
No, I keep care.
It was the excitement of a new problem, solving that problem, and then seeing it through to fruition and knowing that we're keeping dudes safe if they find themselves in that situation.
Well, and we know. In the last couple months, we've had multiple saves off of it, right?
Yeah.
So we've had saves overseas. We've had guys, major SWAT teams here in the United States use it all over the place. Our local SWAT team here in Phoenix used it within the first couple days of them having it. In a serial killer are utilizing it in a hotel against a serial killer that had barricaded himself, and they were able to get right up to the door.
Sounds like a fatal funnel to me.
Yeah, the application of this is not just what we designed it for, and I think that's what we said that day is like, man, this is literally going to change the way that SWAT teams can actually approach doorways. It's going to approach how they can approach vehicles. It changes the capability.
And it did, and that was the thing that we identified going through this was we started with a problem set, we solved that problem, and then we started asking all the questions, and we asked people, and then now it's evolved into this much greater thing.
Yeah, 2 years later,
keeping guys across the spectrum safe, and we're super excited and proud that we can do that for the community. Hey, thanks for joining us on Full Disclosure with Tier Tactical. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Keep those questions coming. Thanks.